Hi, I'm Jeffrey. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about unconditional self-acceptance and the different ways in which we can practice unconditional self-acceptance. To understand unconditional self-acceptance, we first have to understand what it means to conditionally accept ourselves. Conditionally accepting ourselves is telling ourselves that we are good enough when X happens. So maybe we believe we are good enough when we achieve a certain level of education, when we achieve a certain amount of income, when we get our dream job, when we enter a relationship, when we become proficient at a hobby, or something along those lines. The problem with that mentality is that we learn to accept ourselves or believe that we are good enough under specific conditions. This ultimately causes our perceived self-worth and our self-esteem to fluctuate depending on these conditions. This ultimately causes our perceived personal worth or self-esteem to fluctuate based on whether or not we meet these certain conditions. This results in our worth being on a roller coaster. As a result, our mood will likely follow suit. In life, when we're meeting the conditions that we place on ourselves, we will likely experience positive mood. But when we are not meeting these conditions, we are likely to experience negative mood. Often, we place conditions on ourselves in order to motivate ourselves to behave well and achieve more. But the problem is that this motivation comes from the fear of being inadequate and from the fear of not being good enough, as opposed to being motivated by purpose, desire, and optimism. Now, to understand self-acceptance, we have to understand the concept of unconditional worth. Unconditional worth is the notion that all humans have equal, unchangeable worth. This means that despite our successes, our failures, our mistakes, our triumphs, our good behavior, our poor behavior, our worth does not fluctuate. Our human worth does not change. Our successes and failures can be greater or worse than other people's. Other people can have more or less materialistic things, a higher or lower level of education, can be more or less famous, can behave better or worse, but our personal human worth is unflappable. It is simply a straight line. That means that your personal worth is no greater than a person who's living under a bridge and no less than the person that you admire the most. To further explain this concept, think of yourself being in a room with 100 newborn babies. You wouldn't start saying, well, that baby's superior to that one, or that baby's inferior to that one, or that baby is more or less worthy than that one. It just wouldn't make sense. That being said, unconditional self-acceptance begins when we know that we are good enough for simply being alive and for being human. So now that we get the concept of unconditional worth, how can we practice self-acceptance on a daily basis? This technique comes from a book called The Self-Esteem Workbook by Dr. Schiraldi. When we make a mistake, we can form the sentence, even though blank, my worth does not change. An example of this would be, let's say that you got a bad grade on one of your exams. You would tell yourself, even though I got a bad grade, my worth is unchangeable. Therefore, this technique can be done moment to moment every single day. Because we're human, we're supposed to make mistakes. And when we can practice telling ourselves, even though I made a mistake, or even though I did something wrong, it does not change my worth. This can also be practiced when you do something well. For example, say you just landed your dream job. You can practice telling yourself, even though I just landed my dream job, my worth does not change. This will help at reducing arrogance and the need to one-up other people. Ultimately, practicing self-acceptance leads to more peace, less fear of making mistakes, and reduces the need to compare ourselves to other people. This concludes today's video. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts about self-acceptance. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.